And now we got the second prelim fight ready to kick us off here. And I mean, we go from these combined 0-4 fighters right into guys like Zhalgas Zhumagulov and Jerome Rivera. Now, interesting characters, right? I mean, with Jerome Rivera, despite the lack of success in the UFC, I mean, we've seen him in 3 fights, and the guy's fought at featherweight, bantamweight, and flyweight. He's got experience across the board. Figgy Jr. was where he got the experience at 125, and now he's going into his second 125 fight. And it's very obvious, you know, in terms of all the fights he's had in UFC, by far the most success. Once he got past, you know, I think the speed and the durability factors of Figgy, he was able to do a lot more of his damage. I think that he's the kind of guy that when your opponent loses power and even loses technique because of cardio, he's able to kind of do more of his damage. Kind of like that fighter you want to see go 3 rounds, maybe even 5, just because it's such exciting fights. Wasn't really that tired. I mean, technically speaking, I think that there was a lot of gaps to be filled, but outside of that, man, he made a pretty good argument for what could have been a close comeback in that final round. And you know, outside of that, you look at the Tyson M and the Odi Osborne fights. I mean, both of those were finishes, obviously at different weight classes, and it's just really interesting to see him go back to 125, where you could make the argument that it was probably one of her more successful fights despite the loss. And on top of that, with a guy like Zhalgas Zhumagulov, who's 5'4", Jerome's going to have a massive, huge 6 inches in terms of height and reach. So, I mean, in terms of, you know, the keys to victory, it's very easy to notice where this man should be trying to keep the fight, right? Avoid any big takedowns. I think that if he uses his kicks and just jabs his way to a victory, you know, he doesn't have crazy amount of power. And I think that that's going to be something that you need to take into consideration, right? I mean, 4 or 5 of his losses have been inside the distance. So getting in close and taking big shots, especially from some of these powerful guys, is not the way you want the fight to go for Rivera. So maintain distance, use the footwork, land those kicks low, high. And I mean, I think within, you know, using a jab to set things up can really help him get this fight and what would be his first UFC victory. Now, Zhalgas Zhumagulov, I mean, I love this guy. And I think the big thing for him is like that record from Fight Nights Global. He really was such a legend there, but it'll always stand out to me as to how he got that victory over Tagir Ulanbekov. I mean, that fight, I really thought he lost, but he ends up becoming the champion before making his way to the UFC. And you look at the 2 UFC fights, right? We got Paiva and we got Albazi. Albazi's striking looked so much better, and the head movement, level changes, feints, they were just everything that Zhalgas could not deal with. And I think even as the fight went on, he was able to start scoring takedowns, things like that. That's where Zhalgas seems to have issues, you know, getting his own timing going with being such a smaller fighter. It seems to really prevent him from finding major success. And I think if you look at the fight against Paiva was able to really land some good kicks, you know, high, low. The length was something that he used to his advantage so well. And, you know, we're kind of giving the same argument for Rivera. In terms of game plan, I think that there's very, very specific ways that you can go about this fight and probably find success in multiple areas. Now, with Zhalgas, I mean, loves the leg kicks. Leg kicks galore all the time, but you know, he does have good setups for those big combos that he throws, but they're always up. So he's always coming in with, you know, big hooks, things like that. And I think his jab is always there. But again, when you're throwing it like this, I find that that's an issue for a lot of fighters. And in this case, with the Albazi fight and the Paiva fight, for example, both guys had such good movement, head movement especially. And so it makes it a lot harder to time those things. And now with this fight, I mean, despite such a massive reach advantage, the thing with Rivera is he takes damage. And the reason why he did so well in that little Figgy fight was that he was able to kind of just outlast that period of a fight where, you know, the power's there, the speed's there, all of that stuff, and just put on a bit more of his own show. And in this fight, I mean, Zhalgas really just has to keep landing those big leg kicks. And in my opinion, take this fight to the ground. I think if you really make Rivera work for that position, for the stand-up fight, it's going to make him tired. It's going to put him in places where he really shouldn't be in this fight. I think that if Zhalgas gets this fight to the ground, you eliminate the size factor. And I mean, he's got some good power. I mean, it's not like he's a crazy finisher by any means. Go check the record. But the idea is he can do damage. And I think that's where he struggles so much to put things together. You know, he's not going to be a guy that can land 4 to 5 punch kick combos because he stands 5'4" against a lot of guys now who are just healthier. And flyweights are not these small guys anymore, man. They're healthy 5'6", 5'7" dudes who can, maintain that weight pretty easily. And so for me, I really want to see him find success with the takedowns, use the leg kicks. I just think that, without good power, without good level changes and power moves, I think it's going to be just a really tough point battle against a guy who's just got such good length and then also has a good kicking game to his advantage, and then good jabs, long punches, not crazy for power. So he's going to be throwing straight, which is so important in a fight like this. So I really think that Jerome Rivera has a chance to at least make a bigger splash than he has in his UFC career so far. I do think it's a hella tough fight against a guy who's going to push forward constantly. And if he's able to land big early, Jerome always has issues with that. And so for Zhalgas, it's just stay patient, man. Land those shots that you're confident with. Don't get beat up too easily. I think that he has the chin and durability to not get finished here at all. I don't see him getting finished by any means. And the simple fact that we mentioned, 4 or 5 losses for Rivera has been via finishes, it kind of opens the door to an interesting outcome here. But I'm leaning for this one to go to the distance, with Zhalgas probably being able to find ways to even steal the last 2 rounds, even if Rivera is able to find success in the first. That's my lean. Not 100% on that yet, but I do think that when you break down the paths to victory, Zhalgas has a lot going for him here, and I think that that's going to be an issue for Jerome to really figure out for 15 minutes as opposed to trying to get that finish. So let's take a look at I didn't expect it to be this bad. I really thought that, given the length and even the Figgy fight, little Figgy was having some struggles, especially in that 3rd round with him. And because that power factor, he just probably wasn't in fear of getting finished. But there's a very real argument for Jerome Rivera being a better, flyweight fighter than he is anywhere else. And so looking at a plus 300 opener, now getting down to about plus 240, plus 235. But Zhalgas, man, coming in at minus 384 and now sitting at, live about 300 to 350, just all over the place. Looking like one of the bigger favorites on the card overall, which really kind of blows me away, which makes me always a little excited about seeing that. I think that that's actually a lot closer than you think. But again, it's going to be a technical battle, and it's whoever can maintain that discipline, with Jerome Rivera trying to be a longer fighter and avoid any big shots and takedowns, whereas Zhalgas is just going to move in there quick, big boxing, big leg kicks, and look for the ground. I think that's a smart play, and it should be a really fun fight, especially for the 125 division.